And political strategist Jeanette Hoffman is joining us now to help us sort through the impact of all of this. So in the poll of public opinion, I mean, we heard the leadership blaming each other, but who do you think gets the blame here or will get the blame?
Well, I think it's split, right? I think everyone thinks that, all the politicians should be to blame here, right? Because, you expect Congress to do their jobs, pass a budget. President Trump, I think he has the loudest microphone here. He's blaming the Democrats, predictably, but I think he's kind of relishing this here. I think he's kind of saying, listen, be careful what you wish for, Democrats. We're going to take this shutdown as an opportunity to cut the government even further, and we're going to cut some programs that you guys don't like. And actually, I should point out 3 Democrats actually voted for the clean resolution to keep the government open. Angus King in Maine actually voted.
True. Yeah.
So there is some hope because Senate Republican leader John Thune says we're going to vote again today. So they only need 7 Democrats to get to 60 votes in the Senate. So 3 crossed over, and maybe we'll get to 60.
Now, this is the first shutdown since 2019. Mm-hmm. Is there, in this very polarized atmosphere in Washington, any room for compromise or cooperation at this point?
Well, I think, compromise could be a dirty word here. And they always say a good compromise is when no one's happy.
Right.
The big issue here, what the Democrats really want is health care. Mm-hmm. They were very unhappy with the Medicaid cuts in the big, beautiful bill. And also the subsidies for the Affordable Care Act would result in higher premiums. Now, in the last round of negotiations in the White House, J.D. Vance, the vice president, said, you know what, we're willing to negotiate on the Affordable Care Act, on those subsidies. And the Democrats said, you know what, not good enough. We're going to walk away. But, they left the door open there. So the Democrats have to think about their exit strategy here. How are they going to get out of this, especially with President Trump saying, hey, we're going to cut government even further. We're going to lay off a lot of people here. So I think there is a glimmer of hope there that there could be a negotiation on the Affordable Care Act, but maybe just not in this clean resolution.
Yeah, and we should point out this affects something like 22 million Americans who do avail themselves of those tax subsidies to lower the premiums if they get their health care through the Affordable Care Act. So by the end of the year, those subsidies go away and they'll see their premiums, I've read, more than double.
Right.
So real Americans, average Americans would see the impact of that. The question I have is, though, why wouldn't the Democrats agree to, short-term fix, and then let's talk about these issues moving forward and come to some sort of deal on the subsidies? Why didn't they make that move this time?
Well, politics, number one. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on the Democrat Party to score points against President Trump to get a big win. So I think, and they also don't, there's a lot of distrust of President Trump and the Republicans that they might not really deal in good faith. So I think, eventually they're going to have to do something. And, I should point out that this funding that the Republicans are proposing is Biden level funding. There's no funding cuts in this continuing resolution here. But I think, the left wants to score points against President Trump, and that's why they're pushing for the shutdown right now.
Now, there's all this partisan fighting back and forth, but there's a certain practicality to this. What actually happens during a shutdown?
So in the short term, you're probably not going to feel it in your day-to-day life. It's funny, my in-laws are taking a flight on Friday, and they're like, is TSA going to be open? Air traffic control? And
the answer is yes.
The answer is yes, right. I'm like, you're probably not going to see any difference in the airport. But, back in 2019, 2018, as you mentioned, there was a shutdown for 35 days. So, a lot can happen during that time. And most notably, people won't get paychecks if they work for the federal government. So they're definitely going to feel it. I thought a really interesting proposal, Senator Rick Scott had said, I don't think we should pay lawmakers if there's a government shutdown because they're just not doing their job. So, maybe if Republicans and Democrats in the House and Senate didn't get a paycheck, this would be resolved a lot sooner.
The ultimate incentive.
Yes, exactly.
Right. I'm guessing that's not going to fly either with our lawmakers.
They'd actually have to pass that.
But you have to worry, you have TSA agents and you have air traffic controllers. If this drags on, they're going to work, they're not getting paychecks, they have to feed their families, and that builds resentment, I'm sure. And they're keeping our skies safe and keeping planes in the air. So
and our military as well. So it really impacts a lot of people, and it also impacts our economy.
All right, Jeanette, thanks for being here.
Thanks
keep
for having
you right
me.
here. Don't go away, because also making headlines this morning, President Trump and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth addressed hundreds of the military's top brass at Quantico, Virginia yesterday. Both men speaking about their vision for the military. Hegseth railed against rules of engagement he called stupid because he said they limit soldiers and commanders in the field. He stressed that promotions would be solely based on merit, claiming that has not been the case. He demanded so-called fat service members, including generals in the room, get in shape and also lose their beards. President Trump spoke for more than an hour, and at one moment that stood out for his vision of what he envisions for the military, for what the military could do in the future. Take a listen here.
This administration has done a great deal from day one to remove the social justice, politically correct, and toxic ideological garbage that had infected our department, to rip out the politics. No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses. No more climate change worship. No more division, distraction, or gender delusions. No more debris.
But I want to salute every service member who has helped us carry out this critical mission. It's really a very important mission. And I told Pete, we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military, National Guard, but military, because we're going into Chicago very soon.
That raised a lot of eyebrows. That moment right there, where the president talked about using the military to move them into cities as training grounds.
Yeah.
What does that mean exactly? I mean, we've heard him talk about sending the military into cities like Chicago, obviously, but as training grounds, that language disturbs some people.
Yeah, a lot of people are like, what is he talking about? Using the nation's own military on its people in cities like Portland and Chicago. Now, notably, the military, the National Guard was deployed in Washington, D.C. to make the streets safer. And the mayor said that was great. And she's very happy that the streets are safer. But D.C. is a federal jurisdiction. So that is okay. But cities like Portland and Chicago are not. So that definitely raised a lot of eyebrows.
Do you think ultimately, if more troops are sent into the street into places like Baltimore, New Orleans, do you think that's going to stir up popular resistance?
It really depends on the cooperation of those mayors and governors there. The mayor of the city of Portland basically said to President Trump, like, hold off. I'm trying to get it under control. And the president said, okay, but he's still talking about it. So we'll see. But, I could see some local resistance in places like that.
And Jeanette, coming up in the next hour, we're going to get some more reaction to the president's remarks about using the military to train in U.S. cities. From Republican turned Democrat, former Congressman Joe Walsh will be here. Why he sounded an alarm on his social media late yesterday.